The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the West Stand. It's our new show that bookends the week, start and the end of the week. This is the Monday show where we welcome guests from across the world of Leeds United, journalists, commentators, ex-players, plenty more. Dan Moylan with you with Michael Normanton and Graham Smyth from the Yorkshire Evening Post, and fresh out of Daniel Farke's press conference after a comprehensive 3-0 victory against Coventry City. That's more like it, isn't it? How was Farke?
Understandably very pleased. Pretty pleased, as he would say. He really liked how dominant they were in the first half with the ball and how dominant they were in the second half without the ball, which I thought you lot would like.
A Heckeyism.
He felt that they really controlled it, and even though Coventry had a lot of the ball for a long period of the second half, Leeds were rock solid, in Farke's words, and gave up one chance, which allowed him to get his customary little gag in about realising that Melier was still on the pitch when he made that save.
A good save it was as well.
Yeah, you have to credit him. I mean, he did nothing, did he, for 90 minutes, and then he's pulled an absolute worldie out of the draw from that long-range strike. But that was it. Like, that was Coventry's one chance that you would really call an actual chance, and it came from, 25 yards? So they gave up nothing today, Leeds. Really, really solid, but also some pretty football as well, so it wasn't. It certainly wasn't boring.
Were you all surprised by their lack of ambition? I expected better from them, given what happened last year.
I suppose I expected a bit more physicality from them, because that was what I remember last year, was that we just seemed to struggle with them up front. Like, Sims had a fairly decent game and caused us problems last year, and it never felt like it was happening today.
He landed one on Rodon once and knocked him down. And I don't know if you saw, but Rodon at least thought about, and his legs started to go into the motion of a little kick out, and he kind of restrained himself, which was nice to see, because a red card at that stage would have been very, very disappointing. But apart from that, Sims was really quiet. And Haji Wright, when he came on, I don't think he did anything, did he?
No, I think we were saying that on the match ball, weren't we? That was Bogle's best game, and I think he had him in his pocket. He just had the measure of him. There were a number of times when he looked like Haji Wright was going to go down the outside on the to the byline and cut back. Didn't manage to get past him once, from what I can remember. No,
I mean, he might have he put one dangerous ball into the box, I think, and Stroik cleared it from the 6-yard box, but that was about it. I think what really pleased Farke was the fact that they had the difficulty in midweek with all the injuries and players missing training. They had the difficulty of their captain limping off with what looked like a really sore one, and they had to adapt to that. And Tanaka comes in, who's not really a defensive midfielder, and yet despite all that, they just look so comfortable. And part of it, you do have to recognise, part of it was Coventry were desperately poor, uncharacteristically poor, you have to say. You expect a lot more from Mark Robins' side, but Leeds just didn't let them get going at all today. Gave them no momentum whatsoever.
Do we know anything else about the injury to Ampadu?
Sore one.
Which bit of him sore?
He's got a very sore knee.
That's his knee, right.
But Ampadu himself told Farke that he doesn't think it's that bad. Farke is too careful yet to be optimistic, so they're going to wait for it to be assessed. But you'd have to say, looking at the way he was moving, Tuesday would be unlikely.
Yeah. I think it's always better to get medical opinion on these things rather than just vibes.
I'm available.
Right.
If they want an expert.
What did it look like to you?
I mean, I was asking what body part it was a second ago, so it'd probably be insincere.
What's your advice for looking after the patella and the ACLs?
Just strap it up and go again.
Ice.
Keep it elevated. Keep it elevated.
Yeah. Standard stuff. But you can tell that Coventry are suffering from a lack of confidence, because I was looking at the table. That leaves them 21st as that result. One win all season and no win in 5 now.
They're not doing what you would expect, but I think I agree with what Farke said in the pre-match presser, that the more Robins works with the side, the better they'll get. I'd be really surprised if they were down there this season. And we were saying before we started recording, they're not the only side to play against Leeds this year and look pretty poor. Leeds have made a lot of teams look pretty normal, even if Leeds haven't been absolutely sparkling themselves. Hull, very average. Sheffield Wednesday, very poor. Cardiff were dreadful in that game. So they're not alone in playing badly against Leeds.
I'm just looking at the table from this 7 games in last year. Coventry were 18th then as well, and it all ended fine for them, whereas Birmingham were 8th.
Right, and it didn't very much
for them.
Didn't.
Yeah, and Preston were top.
Yeah. So a lot can change, I suppose, is the point we're making. But yeah, they looked like a very different team to the one we faced at the end of last season, when we were wobbling a bit and they got their tails up after we had a bit of a bright start in that game. But it was all just getting away from us, I think, by that point in the season. But even the home game, we dominated the home game, but didn't take our chances, and then they bit back. So yeah, it feels like a far more relaxing outcome today compared to the stresses and strains I think we faced against them last year.
Given the points we've dropped, it's maybe unfair to say this, but I don't think I've seen us play a good side yet.
No. Are we maybe like one of the best in the division, and that's what's happening? I do wonder, is genuinely, and both of you please do like address this from a serious perspective, we're not used to being the best team in the division, I don't think. I think it comes as a bit of a culture shock to us at times, and we're still adjusting to the idea that most teams just set up to try and not lose against us. And we saw that from Coventry on Saturday. They just didn't want to lose. They set out in a 5, didn't they? Like a lot of teams do. 5 at the back, and didn't show any or very little ambition going forward, and we're just happy to try and contain us. And I think that surprised me a bit because they showed more ambition last season, but I can't think of a game so far this season where any team has tried to come out and come at us, really.
I'd be surprised if anyone, barring maybe Sunderland, Sheffield United, I'd be surprised if anyone showed any ambition against Leeds, because you look at Farke's results with Leeds when they have less of the ball than the opposition, they win a lot of games. The win ratio is fantastic when they see less possession. The Coventry game was another example because Coventry ended up with 51% of the possession in that game, which is mental after the way the first half panned out. Sunderland, I would expect at home they'll try and play a bit, but it's a dangerous game against Leeds because
but they are going to want to raise the atmosphere, aren't they? Though
exactly, yeah, they're not going to park the bus at home. I mean, that would just, you couldn't see that happening, could you? But what I like about this Leeds team, and this is maybe a slight concern with Ampadu not being available, is that yes, they can play some really intricate short stuff, but long is beautiful too. We like long. Ampadu can hit long balls, and they've got so much pace up front that you can get players in behind. And I like that last season when Leeds really threatened from deep and mixed it up a bit. We haven't seen that as much. I don't remember Ampadu playing too many long balls to put. Remember he put Georgie in a couple of times last year. He would hit Bamford with long balls to try and put him in behind. But then Joseph's very, very good at receiving the ball short, isn't he? So maybe they don't need to go long as much.
I mean, we're trying to remember which goal it was here. It was Tanaka's pass, wasn't it, which set Nonto away to cross the Piroe.
Generational talent out Tanaka.
That was a fairly long pass over the top, wasn't it? It was one of those where they'd had
accurate, picked out.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Put on a sixpence.
Just mouth-watering stuff, wasn't it? From
brilliant.
But that was one where...
And yes, I'm going to run this joke all year.
There wasn't the kind of tippy-tappy build-up to it. It was just, there's a man in space, just hit him.
Yeah. I was going to say, actually, on that, though, Farke said, didn't he, in the presser post-match, that the players had sort of taken it upon themselves not to take risks, like in terms of the football today. And he sort of went along with that. Yeah,
he said that he backed their decision to be a little bit more risk-averse in the second half. He did attribute it to lack of composure in possession as well, because they did give the ball away a fair bit, but they just didn't take very many risks, and he thought that was fine. It was almost like they were conserving energy a little bit with the schedule coming up. I really liked that pass from Tanaka, and what I really liked about that was that everyone in the stadium was telling him to do it, whereas we saw an example earlier when Bellier punched across instead of catching it, where he didn't do what 33,000 people were screaming at him to do.
Catch it, yeah.
So it's nice to have a bit of obedience on the pitch, but I think if you have players like Tanaka, even if you are sitting in like that, you have a real chance to spring a counter because he can play forward very, very well. And it just gives your midfield a different dimension, doesn't it? It was nice to see him in because we've been waiting for it, haven't we? Champing at the bit to see him.
Yeah, we always like something shiny and new. We're quite simple creatures, really, aren't we?
Well, it's almost the unknown of it being is better, isn't it? Sometimes you just think, he's probably brilliant, but we're just not being allowed to see him for some reason.
But whenever there's a problem, and there's always a problem in football because it's rarely perfect, because it's two teams going up against each other, so you can always find faults with the system or with the team or whatever it is. The answer is always the thing that's not happening.
Mm. That's what Bielsa used to say, wasn't it? Whenever you lose, the demands are always for the player who didn't play. And it's true, but it's a bit more understandable with Tanaka because he's exactly what Leeds were missing, or he looks like exactly what Leeds were missing last season, like an offensive 8 who can pick passes and play through. I think it'll be very interesting to see how Farke asks him to play if he starts at Norwich, if he asks him to be as disciplined as he was today, or if he gets a bit more licence to roam, because he didn't really get that licence much today, did he?
No, he was dropping into the back four, and like if Bogle went upfield, he'd drop in at right back or sometimes left back if Firpo went upfield.
So even now he's playing, we're not happy.
Yeah, no,
For God's sake, let the shackles off him.
Yeah, it's just he was deep. He was dropping back between the centre backs quite a lot, and then allowing them. Because actually, one thing I think we do quite well when we do it, but I don't think we do it often enough, is the centre backs picking it up and running out with it. Because often you'll see teams trying to stop us doing the thing that we do, which is either to drop it into like Ampadu or whoever's in the number 4 spot, or go wide, and they'll try to protect those channels. Just run with it sometimes. We've seen Rodon get a little rush to the blood to the head sometimes.
Yeah, he's not bad at it either. He's all right at it. But I think what they have ringing in their ears is Daniel Farke saying, expect the worst. You know, that I think is very much what he wants the mentality to be for his centre-backs. Expect the worst and prepare for the worst. Because he just wants he wants total control. Just completely minimise the risk of the opponents having any sort of a chance, and then play from a position of dominance. And then when you get an early goal, it just works, doesn't it? Because you're in control, you can control the game, and you're winning on the scoreboard.
And they have to come out then.
And they have to come out.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I was getting at today when I was saying on the match ball, Michael, like, we scored at the right times today. I think Tanaka's he's got Tanaka on the brain. Farke's approach is vindicated when it works and when he scores. When we score early enough to justify playing in the way that we play, because you can afford to then control possession, and there's not that tension doesn't sort of permeate the stadium because it's still 0-0. It can creep back in at 1-0, which was my little fear today at the start of the second half, but we saw it off with that second goal, just put the whole thing to bed. But yeah,
there were groans as well on 11 minutes when they played a backwards pass. Like there was a substantial section of Ellen Road went, ugh. But then 6 minutes later, you're ahead. And I actually thought the start was pretty bright. You know, I thought Gnonto was very, very good. I thought Aronson was good in progressing moves, and they were finding space. So I thought they started attacking enough. But yeah, once they get that goal, then it's very, very difficult for teams to beat Leeds because they just control you so much.
Yeah, we were saying on the match ball, we've only conceded 4 goals so far this season, of which 3 were on the opening day. So if you ignore the bits you don't like and just take the bits that you do, it's starting to shape up really, really well. And as we were saying before, defences win championships, don't they?
And I mean, that Portsmouth game is, I know we are sometimes frustrated with managers pointing at stats as a reason why they're actually doing a good job. But the Portsmouth game was a weird one because they didn't create very much at all and somehow scored 3 goals from it. So I can see Farke's point when he's drawing attention to this, going like, look, we actually don't concede any chances. I know we conceded 3 goals, but it was not fair.
And he doesn't count the Burnley goal either because the centre-backs were ahead of the ball. And so he'll say, we haven't conceded a goal with our centre-backs behind the ball. Which is true because both centre-backs were up for the corner and they conceded possession and conceded a goal. But in any situation where Rodon and Struijk have been in position, they haven't conceded since the opening day. Have they? Have they conceded a single goal other than Burnley since the opening day? They haven't?
No.
That is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, in 7 games it is, isn't it? But then we're against all these championship losers.
Speaking of corners, why are we even sending men forward? We're never going to score. Another 7 today.
It's actually become almost like a comedy point, hasn't it?
They should almost set up like it's a throw-in and just keep everyone in their normal positions and just pass it out and then just try and attack from there.
Or just, let's take it to its logical extreme. Look after possession. Get it back to Meslier.
Yeah,
just hoof it back to Meslier. I'm obviously joking, but could you imagine the groan that would go up around Ellen Road if Brendan Aronson did that little thing with his little tippy-tappy toes when he's running up for it and he put his hands in the air and then he just buried it back to Meslier?
Do you think he's missing Jack Harrison? Because the two of them used to always stand over a set piece and
whisper,
and then the same thing would happen every single time anyway.
I would stand up for the quality of the delivery in some of the games this season. Some of the deliveries have been great. Struijk has got first contact and hasn't made the most of his chances, but I feel against Coventry,
sorry, I was thinking, a lot of one today when
deliveries were straight to the
when
post.
Rodon cleared it for them. I just remembered as you were saying that. I thought, what did Struijk do?
It was the back post, that one. Yeah, I
cleared
remember
it. It's like, come on, lads, give yourselves the best chance possible. We will score from a corner at some point, and we will all have a great deal of fun talking about it.
But if that clicked, I mean, if you added that as a strength to this team, I mean, would they be largely unstoppable because they can score from open play, as we've seen. They don't concede goals. If they became a real threat from set pieces, it's nigh on perfection.
I will say I don't think Ramazani and Solomon are great set piece men to have brought in.
Yeah, Dan James to join Dan James and Willie Gnonto.
Although there was a point today where Ramazani found himself with like the number 9 position and somebody just wellied the ball towards him.
He did really well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Held it up, didn't he?
And I was like, because I remember remarking something hilarious to myself under my breath, like, well done for hitting the big man, like, that kind of, wisecrack. But yeah, sometimes in this division, you've said before loads, it just works. Just sometimes chuck it into the number 9 and get the defenders thinking about it, get them turning, running back towards their own goals because they hate it. Because there's loads of bad teams down here.
There are fundamentally an awful lot of defenders in the Championship are not at all comfortable having to play football or deal with awkward balls, like high balls bouncing over the top of them, balls to their feet. They just basically want to head easy balls out is what most Championship defenders seem to want to do.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Whereas also if they have to turn and run after it and there's someone chasing after them,
he's dead quick.
They'll kind of do that thing where they just hope to get fouled.
Or if they have
given to it.
Someone running directly at them, like Ramazani or like Joseph today, who just the sea just parted when he picked up the ball on the left and just ran directly to the edge of the box. The finish wasn't great, and that really could have been better. But the defense just, I don't know what they did. I don't know what their hope was there.
How do you think Joseph's doing?
Really well,
because he's not really got enough goals, has he? Is the only thing. But I feel like generally speaking, everyone's quite pleased with his performances. I don't feel like there's any clamour to get him out of the team, which is weird actually when you think about previous situations where it was Bamford
and Nketiah
and everyone was like, just play the guy who can score.
Well, there were I detected quite a bit of Piroe is the best finisher in the Championship. Why is he not playing after Cardiff? But when you look at the numbers and the creativity that Joseph has, he's got 3 assists, hasn't he? He's created big chances, but he's doing a lot of the aspects of the number 9 role that Piroe probably doesn't do for you. Like when he flicked that one on for Ramazani at Cardiff, Piroe probably doesn't do that. And I feel like they're almost in the perfect scenario here where they've got a young developing striker who is going to score goals but is also creating and doing everything you want. And then you've got this finisher who comes off the bench every week now when teams are stretched and sticks one in the back of the net as insurance.
Yeah, I had a chat with my dad about that today. He was just talking about Piroe and where he fits, and he almost
was he still there for the goal going in?
He left 81 minutes.
Oh, okay, so
yeah, he hung around for a long time. He said to me today, actually, he said, why didn't I ever feel this anxious during the Reeve era? And I did give me pause for thought. I did wonder what is it about football that's changed.
He was drunk.
Probably. He was young and optimistic and drunk.
Possibly.
Is that what it was? But yeah, I mean, Joseph does a lot of the donkey work, doesn't he? And he wears down centre halves who then have to deal with Piroe, whose movement and running is good for that sort of final ball aspect of it all. And maybe sort of special teams is his role when a game has stretched, as you say, Graham, and it starts to open up. Because you noticed it today, it was quite compact, wasn't it, in the first half, and then in that second half, particularly when I think we got the second goal, it all just felt a lot more stretched and there was a lot more space in midfield.
It's an important role as well because Piroe, I mean, I suppose today you can say at 2-0, 10 minutes to go, they were probably never getting back into it. But there's also that bit of you that goes, it just takes one set piece to get nodded in at the far post or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the stress of the last 10 minutes of then maybe it'll just drop them again in the box, whereas Piroe scores that goal and everyone just goes, right, done.
Yeah.
It's 100% over now as this game, as the Cardiff game was when he comes on and they're already on 10 men. But there's still a little bit of you, even though they've had 0 threat in an entire match, you think, these things can turn. I mean,
it's not irrational either, because that's just what football's like. Isn't it?
I mean, we're recording this on the anniversary of Leeds 4, Preston 6, a game in which we're 4-1 up and cruising.
Yeah.
So bad stuff does happen.
Yeah. No, he's right.
Yeah, anything can happen, and if it's going to happen to someone, it feels like it might happen to Leeds United.
Do you know that kind of flows into my thoughts about the bigger picture here? And I feel like, do you agree, there's a bit of an oil tanker feeling about Leeds United. There always has been, and once you get it going, it's unstoppable. And I think Liam Cooper in his departing remarks even said something along those lines. Once it gets going, it's a phenomenal beast. And there feels sometimes almost like from a season to season basis. I think we saw it a little bit last year. It took a little bit of time for it to settle down and the momentum to build. And obviously we sabotaged ourselves over, Christmas, was it? And then towards the back end of the season. And we've just had that little early season wobble this season, but it feels like maybe there's just a bit of momentum and consistency starting to get into the performances, and we're seeing things every week that we recognise. And I know the Burnley result didn't quite go our way, but a lot of similar things are playing out on the field What do you reckon to it? Is it just starting to get going now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they've never really been. I mean, the opening day wasn't ideal, but they've not really been in a bad spot yet. You know, they've not lost a couple in a row or not really run into a crisis. You know, the biggest complaint against Cardiff was that it was a bit boring, you know, and people booed them passing the ball backwards because people want entertainment, and that's fine. But they won that game 2-0 away from home, and that's 2 wins on the trot now going into a very difficult week. I think you'd be very cautiously optimistic about the way it's looking. I think the real concern going into this week is just the health of the squad.
Yeah,
you know, for this week, 2 games in a very short space of time. He's not going to get the benefit of a lot of training work with them. So, and he always wants the player to train the day before the game, at least and complete that session if he's going to be in contention. So I asked him about Struijk and Rodon and Firpo. Will he have to manage them this week? And he said he'd have to see. But Ampadu being out is the real fly in the ointment at the minute, because if he is out, then you don't have him as a centre-back option. And if Struijk's groin can't face 2 in a week, or if that hip thing of Rodon's flares up, then James DeBayo, come on in.
Can you pump them full of horse drugs to make them play? Is that allowed?
I think that the horse drug's not very conducive to. I don't think they're considered performance enhancing.
Oh,
for
right.
them,
I mean, that might
for
help them sleep.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think
In between games, if you want them to rest.
Are they not different, better horse drugs?
better horse drugs.
So not ketamine, but something.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the ones that make the horses run. I mean, the doping horses.
Right.
Don't dope the horses.
Joe Roder in a K-hole just to trying to play against Norwich.
He has that look about him quite a bit. Anyway, doesn't he? Anyway, Norwich, you are 9th in the table. A mixed bag for them so far, but they are just 3 points behind us. So it's not quite settled down, has it, the division yet, but you can see it starting to take shape. They're going to probably trouble the playoffs, but they've conceded 9, scored 11, so can be got at. 1-3, drawn 2, lost 2. What do we expect from Tuesday? Is it, because I felt like we never quite performed that well on a Tuesday when these sequences of games last year. And was that related to squad management, or is it, I don't know, what is it? Is it the demands of the Championship? It's hard to pick it apart sometimes, isn't it?
I'm trying to remember if you're...
Stoke. What I mean is I didn't like Stoke.
Stoke was a Tuesday night. What night of the week was Leicester away? Was that a Tuesday or was it a Friday?
I have the results in front of me from last season, so I couldn't tell you this.
Maybe that was a Friday.
If I fill and bluff enough, I will find the result on the sheet. So it was the 3rd of November, which was...
Annoyingly, it's not telling you not telling you the day on there, is it? That's a bit harsh.
Goes to the old year here on the calendar. What you're doing is you are looking at a man looking at a calendar. So November the 3rd was a Friday night game.
So it doesn't count?
No.
Okay, fine. So Stoke is what you're saying, basically. You did.
What I'm saying is I didn't enjoy Stoke. Don't do that again.
Fine.
Yeah.
But of this 4-game run that ending it with Sheffield United, you can probably afford to drop one. I mean, you can definitely afford to drop one.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get out of this week with a draw and a win, and another draw and a win, it's a great week.
Yeah.
You mean 7 points from 9?
Yes.
Yes, that would be a very good week.
Fine. But I feel like a draw at Norwich, people would panic again.
Yeah, I'm prepared for us to drop 2 points this week out of these 3 games. That's what I'm reckoning.
But people would panic. They would panic. We draw against Norwich. People will be like, it's not good enough.
It's over.
We're making a mess of this. It will happen because everyone's like that at the moment. It's very, I don't know, it's weirdly tense for a team that obviously is pretty good still.
Yeah.
But I think people recognise deep in their soul that it has to happen this season. Because if it doesn't, then the anxiety just ramps up, the difficulty ramps up, the financial difficulty ramps up. It needs to happen this season.
Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I think that's underpinning a lot of it. I mean, and do we even want to give credit to Angus Kinnear, who came in here and said it's all related to that? Transfers, finances. Are Leeds fans ever going to be happy it's all related to not being in the Premier League?
What do you want to give Angus credit for?
Are we agreeing with him?
I don't know that I would say that the Premier League equals happiness, though. I would say the opposite is true.
But we've had more fun here because we win more games, but that anxiety that you described there is us needing to get out of here.
Yeah.
So the alternative shit, I'm not really looking forward to being in the alternative, but we can't stay here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the results last year, by the way. So it was Norwich. We beat them 3-2 down there. Then went to
That was
Stoke.
the one game where just bringing on loads of strikers actually worked.
And then went to Stoke 4 days later and lost that. But we shouldn't have lost that game. Actually, there was a late penalty in that, so I've misremembered it. I just didn't like the result. And then we beat Huddersfield at home. We absolutely paggered Huddersfield in that first half. So just don't lose away games. Just don't lose.
I think a draw at Norwich would be perfectly acceptable and by any means necessary. If you get out of there with any kind of a positive result going into Sunderland, then the week is perfectly set up. But it's going to be a lot to ask of a squad that's already fairly small and is creaking a little bit. You know, Solomon out, James out, Bamford missed a bit of training, Firpo, Stroik missed bits of training, Ampadu is now looking doubtful. That's a fair chunk of your squad right there.
Horse drugs. Last year when we lost at Sunderland, that was a Tuesday as well in December. So that was rubbish. We went to Blackburn and beat them 2-0, and then went to Sunderland, lost 1-0, and then we drew 1-1 with Coventry last year. So just before Christmas, just heading into Christmas, just because that was a little mini wobble prior to us thumping Ipswich on the last Saturday before Christmas. So that midweek game didn't go well. What else happened midweek? I'm trying to find evidence to suit my point. That's all. But then we're basically down to Easter. So yeah, couple of midweek wobbles last year. But I think just in my mind, I had it parked last year as midweek was in these sequences of 3 games that you get in a week was not favourable to us. But it's only a couple of occasions because we didn't lose that many games, did we?
No, we didn't. I'm just and to compare to last year as well. I've got the table up in front of me from 7 games in. We were 9 points off the top 7 games in last season, and admittedly that was Preston. But then you had Ipswich and Leicester.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
1-6, drawn 1 at this point. Preston last year.
Stupid.
But then you also had Leicester and Ipswich on 18 points. So we were 8 points back, which it's very compact this year, isn't it? The top of the league.
And nobody is going to do what Leicester and Ipswich did last season. Like I said last time, I think the only team you could see possibly being capable of that is Leeds United.
Yeah.
I'd like it if we did that.
Yeah, same.
I'd like it if we got to, Easter's very late this year, right at the end of the season. But if we got round to that and it was just nice, we could, when the sun comes back out again.
And we've already got 92 points on the board.
and everyone's back out in the yellow shirts and we're already as good as promoted and we know we're going up.
Yeah.
Please, can we just do that?
Let's do that.
Because next year, if we do go up, it will be stressful. There's no two ways about it. But we need to get there first and let's do it nicely and not causing everybody to have heart palpitations because that's not nice either. We just need a break, I think, from the drama. Are we addicted to it a bit as well? I do wonder sometimes.
Well, part of the upset with Farke's football is there's not enough drama.
Yeah.
So
I sometimes wonder if he is the absolutely perfect man to lead this club emotionally because he just isn't emotional. Apart from when he's on the touchline and he's in the fourth official's ear, he's not an emotional character. No. Has he raised his voice once in a press conference since he arrived? He hasn't lost the rag. Popey hasn't managed to get in his ribs. And
Yet.
And I don't think he will.
By the way, Popey, all being well, will be on by the end of this week. So I'll see if I can make him do something silly.
But for a club that is, I think it's probably fair to describe as neurotic at times, that Farke is such a steady hand. And I understand some of the complaints about his football. And I also understand that this season there was going to be those who would put the pressure on straight away because they didn't go up last season with the squad that he had and 90 points and all of that. But I'd be absolutely stunned if he doesn't have Leeds right up there this season. I just think his football will work. It will get the wins and the points you need, and he'll just make sure that nobody loses their rag along the way.
We all need to grow up a bit, don't we?
Probably.
Because Leeds has been, I think, maybe by him described as an emotional club. We are an emotional club.
It's also the best thing about Leeds United is that
it's ridiculous.
When the stadium is emotional, it's unlike most other stadiums that I've been to. It's just incredible. But it's the away from the game emotions that sometimes just needs to calm slightly.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe because are we all like in a feeding frenzy, and we're probably part of it because we do this. We talk about Leeds every day. It didn't used to be like that, did it? You used to get your Yorkshire Evening Post for your Leeds United news, once a day, and that was it. That's how you'd engage with it. You might chat to your mates about it at work or in the pub at the weekend or whatever. But there's a constant cycle of
hysteria,
news and there are games most nights of the week these days as well. So you're always being fed football. So I do wonder. So to answer my dad's question, is was it like this during the review era? Probably not, because you weren't constantly bombarded by football and football related news and anxiety.
It was better than just not knowing.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss. So should we just stop doing this?
Are you telling people to stop listening to the Square Ball and stop reading the YUP?
No, but I think that might be the message. But yeah, let's try and be an oasis of calm and sense. Can we at least aim for that?
It's unlikely.
No.
I've got to be honest.
What are your bets going to be for the Norwich game?
Norwich. Simple as that. I'll check the odds. They're probably not particularly long odds for it because it's a home game, but we'll see.
But there's that part of you, Graham, isn't there, that's thinking, but what if? Never mind this fabled 7 points from 9. Or 2 wins and a draw, if you want to call it that.
I was thinking, what if about today, though?
But what if we go to Norwich and win and then we just do that at Sunderland and everything's fine?
Yes. Okay.
Would you be all right with that?
I'll be fine with it.
Yeah. I imagine most people would be.
I think if we win every game between now and the January transfer window opening, people will still be saying we need to strengthen in January.
Go back in and get Gus Hamer.
Get Gus Hamer. Get John Park in as well. Because we need a big man in the Championship who knows the division.
Right.
You know, it's funny you should say that. I was saying it earlier this week. They almost need one of those, but not to play, just to absolutely batter centre halves in training, like De Bayo, because De Bayo's not going to get the chance to come up against a hardened EFL striker because he's training.
You can say grizzled Championship bastard on this show.
He's training against Mateo Joseph, who's quite silky. He's not going to put it on you when the ball's in the air, is he, and elbow you and get in your throat. Why not sign a great big horrible nasty bastard just for training?
Graham. That mouth.
Is there another word for a striker like that?
No,
but that's exactly what it is.
But then again, that brings us back to the Cardiff discussion that we had. Like, I associate Cardiff with that, but just with big, horrible shithouses like, kicking us and making life difficult.
But that's what they've been.
But it's not Ninian Park and it's not San Mamman anymore. It's not like that. Football's just become kind of sterile and homogenised, and maybe that's part of the problem as well. Not the non-contact sport aspect of it almost.
I will say Cardiff did have that guy Kanga up front who did at one point do a ridiculous physical challenge on someone, but it was so ineffective.
Right.
He doesn't know. I feel like a proper grizzled Championship bastard knows the dark arts of it and knows what he can get away with. He just did a big comedy like barge on someone.
Baby giraffe stuff.
And the ref had to be like, well, obviously that's a free kick.
He looked like he'd done labouring all week, which is what keeps him so big and strong. And then he rocked up, to play Sunday League football. Yeah. And he'll either get sent off or he'll score a hat-trick of headers.
Yeah. Or both. Or both. Well, should we see what Norwich brings us and reconvene again in a few days and we'll talk some more about it. We'll see what Popey has to make of it all. Because he's going to be doing some miles this week, so he's going to pop in between Norwich and...
it's a shame Everton won.
Yeah, between Norwich and Sunderland, and let us know what he thinks of it all. Graham, cheers for coming down, and we'll do it again soon. We'll see you soon.
The Square Ball Podcast.